comments up there? Oh, thank you. All right. The video feed is. Is everything on a 7 o'clock?
Plugged in all day. But it's gone dark. It's going dark. Oh my God, they're fascinating. Yeah. Look at them.
That's right.
It's got full batteries.
Your brightness.
Try to turn it up.
Thanks for bearing with us as we address our technical difficulties. Alright. Camera is live. Yep. Good evening. Welcome to the February 17th meeting of the Skokie 68 Board of Education. I will call for a roll call.
Bell Jordan. Here. Espinosa. Here. Joseph. Ruffner.
Here.
Sturban.
Here.
Sullivan. Here. Warshaw.
Thank you all for attending. We will now open our meeting for public comment. Please remember that any public comment is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Garwood or the appropriate person will get back to you. Please state your name and your connection to Skokie School District 68. Please limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes, and please avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member respecting their right to privacy. We have 3 submitted comments in the room. We also have a couple submitted comments online, which will be read after. In alphabetical order, we will start with Mike Nona. Thank you.
I have 2 children. My daughter Christina attends Jane Stenson, and my son attends Old Orchard. So I want to know, why can't they have the option of not wearing a mask when clearly other states are doing that and other districts as well?
Thank you.
Yep.
We will move to Sargon Sarkis.
Are we allowed to take the masks off when we speak, or?
The policy at the board meeting is to keep our
Keep
masks on.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for having us here and bringing us all together. You know, we all have been to civics classes and have taken our Constitution, but there's a majority of us that don't really get involved in these things. But once we do, I think we're really engaged, and I think Joseph, you might even be my neighbor. So it's nice to know, you know, I'm next to someone who's in a position of authority, and I hope you see it in your judgment to do the right thing. And we all know what the right thing is here. I mean, it's a clear-cut case. The only issue is time. You guys want to squeeze out, a few more weeks of getting ready for us to take off the masks. I think that's wrong. I think it's been wrong for 2 years. The state legislators have let the masks expire. Public opinion is against it. The laws are against it. You are also exposing the entire district to lawsuits, and there are people here that are looking at that potential. I mean, if we have to protest, if we have to show up with our kids and take the masks off in the schools, that's what you're driving us towards. I think you believe that you're representing a constituency, but you are ignoring a silent majority that don't show up to these things until their rights are treaded on. Globally, I think this is something that's happening across the whole world. I don't know why authoritarian governors, just like Pritzker, feel that they could use emergency powers past 2 years for a pandemic that we now know is endemic. Even Dr. Fauci has admitted that. All of you are learned people. You know the data. You know the science. The media has blown this out of proportion. 50% of Democrats believe that if you unvaccinated people get COVID, they end up in the hospital, when reality is less than 1%. This is the kind of misinformation that we're dealing with, and I think all of you here know that. And it's time for you to step up, do the right thing, and every minute that you let pass, as of Monday, you guys are in the wrong. I feel like you guys are looking at this as like a toothpaste, and you're squeezing the last bit of authoritarian gel right out of it. And I think it's wrong. And mark my words, we are silent, but there are a ton of us. And we're here speaking on their behalf that they couldn't come here, but we will be here on 2023. I know 3 of you are up for election, and I swear, as God is my witness, we are going to triple this number. And it only takes 4,000 or 5,000 votes to push you out of your seats and to do the right thing. Now, we're not asking you to do something that's wrong. We're asking you something to do that's right. You have no right to impose on us on whether our kids wear a mask. As I've written some of you, and I've told you that my people and Mike, we came from a country that forced masks on girls. And now we come to a Skokie where we have separate but disequal rights. You have 50% of the districts allowing parents to make a choice, and you guys decide that you're going to squeeze it out because, I don't know, we have to get ready for stuff. Like, what is it about the mask at this point that's driving you to this level? If it's a matter of law and you're worried about going back and forth, well, I say you err on the side of what's right, and then let the law take care of itself. Every minute you let pass by is an indication of where you stand ideologically and that you're in the wrong. Thank you.
We will now hear from Anna Marie Thomas.
Yeah, you heard from me again in August, and I still stay there. So my name is Anna Maria Thomas, and I have 2 kids in this district. I'm here to advocate for mask optional to all of the kids, and I'm serious about this. Since August, I sent emails explaining why mask makes no sense by providing facts and data. Of course, as expected, I never heard back from most of you. So I emailed the superintendent, didn't hear back. I heard back from one principal, not the other, so I didn't give up. I emailed all the board members, hoping that I will get an answer. So finally, I heard back from 2 of them. And I don't want to name, but one of the board members said, we're following the guidance of the Skokie Health Department. I'm wondering, is this guidance is just for District 68 specifically, not the whole Skokie? The reason why, because School District 72 is going mask optional. They voted on mask optional. On February 4th, a judge temporarily suspended enforcement of the government executive order and declared IDPH and SB's emergency rule void. District 668 stated that because the school district was not in the lawsuit, it doesn't affect us in any way. On February 14, the school masking order by Governor Pritzker expired. Today, there is no such a thing as the kids should choose, and the kids should choose if they want to wear a mask or not because it's expired based on the law. On Wednesday, JCAR didn't approve the extension of the school mandate. Now, all of a sudden, for our school district, the February 4th appeal case matters. When it was clearly told it doesn't matter because we were not in the school, in the lawsuit. Now it matters. We're waiting for the appeal. Why does it matter now, but it didn't matter on February 6th? Over 600 schools, and I sent a list. I emailed all of you guys with the list of schools. Back then it was over 500, now it's over 600 when mask optional in the past 2 weeks. Not just the 146 in the lawsuit. How come for them the law applies differently? Why are you, I feel like you guys are lying and lying. First, you said you are following the government order. Second, we aren't part of the lawsuit. That's true. So the mask option ruling doesn't affect us. Now all of the sudden it matters. And we have to wait for the appeal results, which hopefully is gonna be tomorrow. Masks don't work. And I presented evidence in the previous board meetings when I spoke. 44 states are mask optional. Florida was one of the first one on masking. And it works. It's better for the kids' mental health. We listened and followed for your rules for 2 years, but no more, because your rules makes no sense. And we feel like you don't care about our kids' mental health or our constitutional right, which has freedom of choice in it. Let us parents choose what's best for our kids. God blessed us with these kids, and we are responsible for their well-being. We, the parents, know what's best for them, not schools or government. We ask you to immediately stop the abusive mask mandate in our schools. Thank you.
Phyllis will read the online submissions.
The first submission was from a Joseph Tomas. Unmask our kids now. We, a group of parents, ask you to immediately stop the arbitrary, oppressive, and abusive mask mandates in our schools that have absolutely nothing to do with the health of our kids. Many states have already done so, and you know it. A court in Illinois has blocked the mask mandates, and you know that as well. But lying that it doesn't affect our school. Yet the other day you emailed us after JCAR suspended the governor mask mandate that we are waiting for the appeals results. Really, why? Because that doesn't affect your schools, as you stated. There is no comprehensive and conclusive study showing that masks are effective preventing the virus. Masks robbed our kids of the ability to breathe freely, smile, and interact with others. They are inflicting incalculable damage on their physical and emotional well-being. We have complied patiently with your mandates until now, but our patience is at the end. We ask you now to immediately free the kids from the mandates once and for all. We will do this politely for now in the hope that you will listen and that organized civil disobedience will not be necessary. Stop the mask mandates.
Yep.
That's the first one. The second one. Hello, my name is Lydia Gog. I am the mother of 5 children within your district. I appreciate everything the staff and administration has done during this difficult period over the past 2 years. However, on February 4th, 2022, Sangamon County Judge Grishow ruled that the emergency mask mandate and guidance from the governor, IDPH, and ISB are void. The mask mandates in our schools are illegal. No authority exists under the law to mandate masks in our schools for children or for staff without due process. As the judge stated, non-named plaintiffs and school districts throughout the state may govern themselves accordingly. I am informing District 68 board members and administration that we expect you to follow the law as declared by the judge. Therefore, we expect our school board, staff, and parents to simply follow the law. By continuing to enforce any of these policies, the school will be willingly engaged in illegal activity. It was made clear that the mandates by the governor and these agencies were deemed unlawful for the named students. By design, if they are unlawful for named students, they are unlawful for all students. Any legal reasoning behind your initial mandates have been voided. IDPH and ISB authority is null and void. It must be noted that school boards have no authority to enforce mitigations and spend our children's due process rights by a show of hands. Children have been subject to the legal actions of ISB and IDPH and the school board for the past 2 years. It is past time for this board to respect every right to due process before masking exclusion and testing can be required. Tuesday, Joint Committee of Administrative Rules, JCAR, rejected J.B. Pritzker's attempt to reissue his emergency school mask mandate. The governor's emergency executive order on school masking expired on Sunday, February 13th. Many schools have come out as mask optional, including Lincolnwood, Glencoe, Lake Forest, Winnetka, Fairview, just to name a few. By all means, every child is allowed to wear a mask if that is their decision. Thank you for your attention at this matter.
Thank you. We will now move to the superintendent's report, starting with the COVID-19 February status update.
So the governor's original mask mandate is set to expire on March 4th. We've been told that that mandate still applies to us directly from the governor's office and from our attorneys. The recent Sangamon court ruling that the governor's mask mandate be rescinded applied to the 46 districts with named plaintiffs. The solution was that those districts needed to go mask optional immediately. That ruling was immediately appealed and the final ruling is expected by tomorrow. In the meantime, many other school districts that were not named in the suit have chosen to go mask optional as well. They have chosen to violate the governor's executive order in doing so. While the outcome of the appeal is in doubt, we and our attorneys have interpreted the mandates, the governor's and the health departments is still applying to our district. The reason that all these rulings are important right now is because the original mask mandate is set to expire on March 4th. Okay? That's Friday. If the appeal is successful and that the governor does have the authority to continue to mandate masks, he would need to issue another executive order, and then that would apply to us as well at that time. That being said, even if the appellate court rules in the governor's favor, they'll have to extend that mandate through executive order beyond March 4th, and it appears unlikely that an extension would last much longer, perhaps just weeks. The district has followed the guidance we've been given by the governor's office, the state superintendent's office, the IDPH, and the Skokie Health Department since the beginning of the pandemic, regardless of our personal opinions or the hardships that the guidance has presented us. At no time have we picked and chosen which guidance or which mandates to follow, and will continue to modify our mitigations as required by law. Given the unsettled nature of the appeal, we believe it's imperative to not move back and forth as the issue is debated in the court in order to avoid a whiplash situation for our students, parents, and staff. Once the legal argument is resolved, we will once again follow the guidance, mandates, or the final ruling. I am confident that masks will become optional in coming weeks, regardless of the outcome. And we have begun taking steps to prepare staff, students, and then parents, or staff, students, and parents. A wise person once told me for every conscious decision an administrator makes, one makes countless unconscious decisions as well. Our job is to think about all the ramifications of the decision, and there are many, and to plan for them so that our transition is not a chaotic transition for our students, for our families, and for our teachers, because not everybody feels the same. While making masks optional sounds like a simple step, it raises a great deal of other questions that we need to answer in order to prepare students, staff, and parents. I believe that the great majority of our parents do not want us to make masks optional from one day to the next. but rather would prefer that we make that transition in a smooth, well thought out, and orderly fashion. This transition is bound to cause emotional and mental turmoil for many, and we want to be prepared to support all of our families, regardless of their mask decision once it becomes optional. To that end, I've communicated to both parents and staff that masks will likely become optional in the coming weeks. I've solicited questions and concerns from staff members so that we can be prepared and clearly communicate our guidance and expectations for this transition. I value the hard work of our staff and do not feel it is fair to make this transition overnight without adequate preparation, leaving them unprepared for all the challenges that will occur. So when will masks become optional in District 68? If the governor's mandate is not extended, it will end on March 4th. That's on a Friday, so that following March 7th would be the first day of school without the mandate. The Skokie Health Department's mandate will end on March 6th, that's Sunday, the same day or right before March 7th. If that's the case, I anticipate we could make the transition as soon as March 7th, 2 weeks from this coming Monday. And we will be ready if that is the case. If the appeals grants the governor the ability to mandate masks in school, and if he extends the mandate, we will have to review any new mandate to make further projections. Personally, I am doubtful that the mandate will be extended even if the appeal prevails. So at this time, we are planning for the potential of going mask optional or mask recommended starting on March 7th. Again, I'm not announcing that March 7th is the first day. I want to be clear. I see that as the earliest date that we would do so, depending on what happens in the courts. There are two sides to this situation: those who want masks in schools to be optional immediately, and those who are fearful of that transition. For those of you demanding that masks become optional immediately, I ask for your patience. District 68 is not resisting the change, but rather, we want to make sure that the transition occurs in a neat and orderly fashion that provides support to the children and adults that will undoubtedly need it. For those of you that are fearful, I ask for calm and understanding. Masks are one of the many mitigations we have in place to protect our students and staff. We are not eliminating the many other protections we have in place, and will only do so in a gradual and organized fashion. Even as we make this transition, we will monitor the situation closely and can make adjustments as needed in order to protect everyone. These have been difficult and divisive times. We can all agree that living with COVID has been hard and that we all want to go back to some semblance of normal. I think that the manner we choose to do that will impact how we can all come back together as one community once this is over. None of us has enjoyed COVID's impact on us over the last 2 years. Let's not let the final impact be a breakdown in the social bonds that make our community the strong and caring one that it is. Additionally, related to COVID updates, as of today, we have 11 positive cases in the district. The trajectory continues to look pretty good. Ryan, can you pull up the graph here for just a second? And I want to explain what this graph is. Originally, when COVID started, we had a metrics plan that had several thresholds that appeared, rather large thresholds at the time. You see those in those small colored bands at the bottom. And then you'll see that big spike we had last year, going into the winter holiday season there, thank you. That's when, that was about as catastrophic as we felt it could get at the time. And then you can sort of see the trajectory as it got better over the spring, and then the summertime even got, all the way down to that place right there. If you move a little bit more to the right, that is Omicron as you get up to that really big spike. Within a couple weeks' time, it kind of blew everything out of the water that we had experienced, and it's dropped about that quickly. Where that arrow is right now is the data as of March 4th. There's a lag time for when we get the data. February 4th, I'm sorry. There's a lag time for when we get the data, and you can see, we're probably, what's today, 16th, 12 days behind that date. This Friday, it updates again, and I imagine that line is going to be getting close down to those colored zones. That's not a metrics plan we use anymore, but we did keep that graph to be able to sort of memorialize and sort of have a context for our entire experience. So, in line with the idea that we may be approaching a time to take off masks, the data is heading in the right direction to do so. In the month of January, when we came back, we had so many cases that we were able to do outbreak shield testing, which allowed us to do shield testing 2 times a week. That really helped get things back in order to the point where I believe right when we came back, we had 187 positive cases on the first day. We're down to 11 now. So things are looking much better. We do not qualify for outbreak testing anymore, so we're not doing the shield test twice a week. We have that once a week, and we're still able to do the test to stay protocols. This Friday and Saturday, tomorrow and the day after, we have 2 more vaccination clinics at Old Orchard School. They offer boosters, they offer first-time shots, second-time shots as well. At this time, amongst our student population, 63% of our kids at Old Orchard at the junior high level are vaccinated fully, with a handful more that have received the first dose. And at the elementary, we're trending in the low 50% with the number of kids who are vaccinated. We continue to do our air quality tests, and they continue to produce good results. So we are pretty good in that count as well. That is it as far as my COVID update, unless any of you have questions that you'd like to ask. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Move on to the mid-year facilities improvement plan.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Tonight, we are going to go over our annual capital projects plan for the next 5 years. Mr. Nelson, who's wearing the backpack there, has really helped me kind of bring this annual presentation to the board, put things together so that we can kind of forecast the next 5 years as for major capital projects. We look at our capital projects in 3 different ways. The first being our safety compliance projects. Those are state mandates or any insurance company inspection results, things that we need to do kind of right away for the safety of our students and staff. Those automatically get level priority 1. When they tell us we need to fix these things right away, they're done right away. The second type is the capital maintenance projects. Those are kind of regular maintenance, routine maintenance, potentially big capital maintenance projects that we have to do in order to keep our buildings whole and standing. We want to make sure that the roof doesn't cave in when it snows. We want to make sure that the buildings don't flood. We want to make sure that when it's cold out, that the heat turns on, and when it's hot out, that the air conditioning works. These are kind of those types of projects that we forecast and look for. I'll talk about those priority levels, but those are priority level 2 and 4, depending on what they are. Lastly, are the capital improvement projects. Those are kind of more related to the strategic plan. Some of the, use the term fun projects, if you will, kind of updating the learning environment, updating, kind of what you see when you walk into the buildings, as opposed to kind of what's in the boiler room and what makes the whole building run. So those are given a level 3 and 5. So the maintenance projects kind of have 2 different severities. Ones that are kind of, we need to do them, ones that are kind of, we can put them off, that's the 2 and 4. So those take priority over the capital improvement projects for the most part, with the exception of some of those 3 and 5 things that we need to hit right away. When we forecast our capital maintenance, we look over the next 5 years, and we have about over $8 million worth of capital maintenance projects that we need. That's lower than it's been in the last few years. We've been able to kind of forecast and keep up with just general routine maintenance and put off some of the bigger maintenance projects a little further. But also in the last few years, we've been able to hit a lot of those capital maintenance projects. We have been able to put a new absorption chiller over at the junior high, been able to upkeep our boiler system. A few years ago, we put a new roof on Highland Elementary School. We've been able to do things and process things in order to offset some of those costs and kind of push them a little further out and extend the life expectancy of what we currently Looking at kind of this upcoming year, you see we've got about $1.7 million worth of capital maintenance costs. Not all necessarily are those level 2 costs, they kind of range into level 4 sometimes, but a majority of that cost is the ESC project, which you will be seeing later tonight, updating the heating and the air conditioning in this building. Other costs that are associated in here, other chillers, other boilers, roofs, lighting. Am I missing anything? No? Okay. Those are kind of the big major projects that we have going on throughout the next few years. When we look at kind of our priority level breakdown, looking out between capital improvement and capital maintenance projects, we're a little lower, we're a little higher overall, but kind of, again, when we look at that critical maintenance, we're much, much lower than the total 1.7 million per year. We assume the capital maintenance project here at ESC is about 800,000, but also when we're below kind of where we need to be budget-wise, we're able to kind of touch some of those more fundamental capital improvement projects. And we're able to touch some of the lighting in the buildings. We're able to upgrade some of the painting, some of the flooring, some of those other kind of key metrics that the students see, the teachers see, the community sees when they come into the building. We're able to touch those when we're able to push off some of those higher capital maintenance projects 3 years down the road. Looking at some of the other projects that we've been able to do the last few years and what we have upcoming, we've been able to do the Old Orchard Corridor Fire Safety Project. That was a level 1. We did that immediately right away when we found out. We've been able to upgrade the cafeteria floors, the maintenance roof, and school lifts at all the buildings. Some of our lifts were kind of outdated and weren't very reliable, and now those will be upgraded. Improvement projects that you've seen, lighting. We've been able to do generators since we had part of a year where we were doing remote learning, generators and making sure that our infrastructure was up and running was very important. So we put in generators last summer. This summer we're doing more elementary carpeting, the HVAC system here. We're gonna keep kind of knocking out the elementary lighting by ourselves. At the Old Orchard, we kind of redid all the lighting at once and brought in a contractor to do that. Over the past few summers, at the elementary schools, we've been able to knock out some of the lighting by ourselves. Our maintenance staff has done a great job kind of knocking that out, and they're able to do those projects whenever they find the time, and are able to upgrade all those systems for us. We're also looking at kind of revamping the Old Orchard gyms, both of them looking at new floors, bleachers, things of that nature this summer. Things in the future, other HVAC controls, boilers, that non-fun stuff that you don't really see, but you really tend to appreciate when you walk into a building at 8 o'clock and it's 50 degrees and you go, oh yeah, that boiler that I never see. I wish it was working today. We had that this week, but regardless. Also looking at playgrounds and just different strategic plan initiatives. One of the reasons why we've kind of pushed off some of those other improvement projects over the years is we don't want the projects to kind of reflect where we're at now. We want to kind of wait and get back to where we were, get back to how schools were run, see how they'll be run in the future before we put a lot of money into kind of those other improvement plans. Any questions?
Just a question of what the big cost will far into the future at Old Orchard. I know there was I think the only year we were over $1 million. That's the combination.
That is Old Orchard's roof, and that is currently what they say the cost is. I'm guessing that doesn't necessarily include a lot of the labor. from what, I mean, the cost of Highlands roof a few years ago was just over $1 million and redo that whole building. Old Orchard is 3 times as big. So that's what that project is. When I started, Old Orchard's roof was very patchy. You know, it's got different sections, and this roof was done 10 years ago, and that roof was done 12 years ago. It just kind of, you know, they patched and did a little bit whenever they made sense. Overall, you know, we kind of get back into that, being able to put off some of those costs. For instance, the roof on this building was up for replacement. I think it was 19 years old at the time. We were able to put a sealant kind of cover on it. Usually the life expectancy is 20 years. It was going to cost $750,000 for this building.
Yes.
We were able to put a sealant on it for less than $100,000, and that got us another warranty for another 10 years, 15 years, 10 years out of, you know, a roof. So basically cutting our overall cost. I know I'm the math guy, that percentage, I'm sorry.
The other additional cost that year is also, it's not just the roof, there's the boiler and the chiller at Old Orchard, for that.
For 27?
Yes.
Yeah, boiler and chiller, and then in 25, that large cost of Old Orchard is part of the parking lot repaving the majority of the parking lot.
Ryan, can you remind us of what the large cost in 2024 is at Devonshire, the 1.3 million?
That is third chillers and upgrade all the devices. So a few years ago, we upgraded the fire panel, but not necessarily the devices within the school, the smoke detectors and things of that nature. So it's kind of a few different projects. So looking at Devonshire for 2024, part of that is the roof, part of that is HVAC, the boiler system, and the chillers, all at Devonshire, and then some of the fire protection systems. So it's multiple projects all. So hopefully in a few years, some more exciting projects, more than chillers and boilers. But as of right now, I'd say expect the next few years for a majority of the facility project money to be associated at kind of those types of things.
Good there. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you, Ernie. And back to Dr. Garwood.
Okay, I do have one more very important announcement that I'm excited to make. We have 2 new administrators for the district in the audience. I'd like to introduce Ferial Atto. Ferial is currently a reading specialist at Jane Stenson Elementary School. She was a DL teacher over at Old Orchard before. Before that, now she's going back to Old Orchard as the new assistant principal. Our first teacher who has moved up into administration within the history of this district that we're aware of. So congratulations, Ferial. Did you want to share any comments?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Garwood. I'm Ferial Atto. I am a Syrian from Syria, and I have been working at our district 5 years ago. I started as an ESL teacher at Old Orchard Junior High, and currently I am the reading specialist at Jane Stenson. I am beyond humbled and honored to continue serving our students, staff, and community in this new role. And I believe together we can continue having the high expectations for our students and have them set for success. Thank you.
That second introduction is Sharon Jacobellis. She is our new Student Services Director, currently working in Barrington. Sharon, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit.
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Sharon Jacobellis. I am so very honored and pleased to be named the next Director of Student Services effective July 1st. I will tell you that I have been here for a few minutes, it feels like, but forever, because the welcoming and the warmth that I felt from those that I've met in the district has been ginormous. And the warmth of Skokie is just pouring out, and I'm just so very glad to be a part of it. I very much look forward to getting to know the board, to be under the leadership of the Board of Education, of course, Superintendent Garwood, getting to know the wonderful staff, the special education staff, and supporting them in their great work. And certainly, and most importantly, getting to know the students and their families, because they're what brings me here. And I'm just so very excited to get to know all of them. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. When we get to the consent agenda, we'll be approving their hires and the personnel report.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of the attention to all of the work that this year has provided. And I'm sure it's at the end of the conversation. We'll all be happy about it. I would like to call for a motion to approve the minutes from the January 20th, 2022 Board of Education regular meeting.
Second.
I'll figure it out. How's that? Okay, Espinoza.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Sturban.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. We shall move to the approval of the consent agenda. Does any member wish to remove any item for separate consideration? Not hearing, I shall call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes the personnel report authorizing the hire and change of status of administrative staff, leaves of absence and resignation of licensed staff, the hire, change of status, leave of absence, resignation of classified staff, including the termination of Trinity Rivera and Lisa Ventura, financial reports, pay orders and expenditures, the second reading on board policies 340, 4110, and 4175, and the destruction of the closed session audio recording from August 20th, 2020.
Second.
Joseph.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Sturban.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Espinoza.
Yes.
Thank you. And again, congratulations. We move on to our reports and discussion items. We'll start with Mr. Sturbans and this month's Ed Red update.
We had a meeting a little less than a week ago, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Ed Red, it is a gathering consortium of Northern Cook and Lake County school districts that get together under this umbrella to advocate, particularly down in Springfield, when they're discussing different bills that would impact the schools in our area. What might be best for something downstate might not be best for something up in this region of the state. And so by gathering together and working together with one voice, it kind of helps to magnify what our perspective might be. And they covered all kinds of different bills that are being discussed down in Springfield right now, more than I could really go through in one sitting. But topics that they touched on were pension plans, possible changes to tenure, possible changes to how curriculum might be encouraged, depending on how you look at the bill and your perspective on it, mandated when it comes to reading curricula and things of that nature. They talked about residential placement for children in special education and how that could or could not be reimbursed to states, changes in how that, to districts, and changes in how that could happen. There are bills down in Springfield attempting to address the substitute teacher shortage that we have not just in our area, but not just in our state, kind of nationwide. And some of the proposals there include reducing the number of professional development hours that would be required annually to be a substitute teacher, reducing the fines that are levied if you don't meet those. So that if somebody has been a sub and they didn't happen to meet the deadline, but then they make up for it, making it still financially make sense for them to follow through and pick up those hours, rather than having the penalty be so prohibitive that once you've missed it, you might consider a different career instead of continuing to try to be a sub, things like that. That was the lion's share of the meeting. There was a separate meeting that I was also able to attend, and this meeting was on the 11th of February, so this was right in the window after the decision had been made down in Sangamon County, before there had been any of the legislative votes that took place this past week, when people were waiting and wondering when we might hear about the appeal. And it was a discussion really about the different interpretations of, how this affects different schools, different students. Also discussed the fact that there are actually two different suits and two different classes of individuals affected by those two suits. One, parents and students, and the other is mandates for employees. And the differences in how the decisions in those two cases impacted not just the named districts, but depending on the suit, those districts that were not involved. So it really was interesting, the fact that there are different interpretations and different legal opinions for both suits, does not help to define the issue. And still, it was very helpful. And one of the things that was mentioned in that meeting is the fact that the current executive order expires in March, and the impact of that on decision making. So overall, it was very interesting, particularly for me, the legislative topics, and hearing which bills they think are more likely to proceed and which ones would have a bigger impact on our schools.
Well, thank you, John. All right, we'll move on to the Board of Education policy first readings.
So we have two policies up for first reading this month. The first one's environmental quality of buildings and grounds. There's been a sentence added to this policy defining that pesticides cannot be used during school hours. And then there's a whole section added regarding coal tar sealant. That section doesn't become effective until January 1 of 2023, but the language has been added now. There's also been legal references updated for the policy. Just for the record, we do not use pesticides during, within 500 feet of the schools during school hours already. So this change of policy essentially memorializes what we already do, which is often the case. Any questions about that policy? Yes.
I just had a curiosity question about the coal tar sealant. That's usually something that we do in the summers anyway, isn't it?
We don't actually use coal tar sealant,
Okay.
so it's not really an issue that will apply directly to us. But it's a required addition to the policy for school districts that might consider using it. Okay, I'm sorry, any other questions about that one? Nope. Second policy is safety. There's two areas where there's some simple revised language, and then an additional section added regarding carbon monoxide alarms. These are something we already have in place, which are inspected annually by the Regional Office of Education. It's now recommended added language for the policy. Again, it's language that memorializes something that we already have in place. Any questions on that one? Thank you. We'll bring those back to second reading in March.
Thank you very much. All right, we now move on to our action item. Specifically the Educational Service Center's rooftop HVAC construction contracts. I call for a motion to authorize Nicholas and Associates Incorporated to issue construction contracts to the following contractors for 2022 summer work. Lodestro in the amount of $299,000 for general trades. Helm in the amount of $347,000 for mechanical and HVAC. And American in the amount of $117,700 for electrical as presented.
For the bid one,
Yeah,
I think you might have,
we need to revise that, my fault.
Sorry, thank you.
We
Do I
can
have the
vote that
correct number?
down, and then we're good.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I'm gonna strike that out entirely. Can we have a motion to vote against it?
We just did a motion. Okay.
Thank you.
And Janu, I'll do roll call and then we'll do it again. Bruckner,
No.
Sturban,
No.
Sullivan,
No.
Bell Jordan,
No.
Espinoza.
No.
Joseph.
No.
Okay, thank you.
For the room, I have no friends and no destro. Nor does Phyllis.
Nor does he.
Apologies,
Sorry about
that is a typo in our script. So at this point, I call for a motion. The motion fails. I call for a motion to authorize Nicholas and Associates Incorporated to issue construction contracts to the following contractors for summer work this summer. RB in the amount of $152,000 for general trades. Helm in the amount of $347,000 for mechanical and HVAC, and American in the amount of $117,700 for electrical, as actually presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Sturban.
Yep.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Bell Jordan,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Bruckner.
Yes.
Ryan voted for me, but I also vote yes.
Hey, Ryan.
I think Ryan was missed.
This whole thing stinks.
He's good.
Okay.
He's a tough. I'm gonna throw them out there every now and again.
Apologies, we didn't have any discussion. Is that why you were chiming in? Anything you want
Yes,
to add to
that's
that?
okay. I appreciate the yes votes.
Sorry about that, Ryan.
Sorry. Okay. I'll bring it in. We'll move on to communication information. There was one request and a response for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period January 15th through February 11th, 2022. On January 18th, the district received a request from Nathan Mihalich from the Illinois Retired Teachers Association requesting information on 2022 licensed staff retirees. The response was sent on January 21st, 2022. At this point, we will move to a closed session. So I call for a motion to enter closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
So moved.
Second.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Bell Jordan,
Yes.
Espinoza.
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Bruckner,
Yes.
Sturban.
Yes.
Cameras off.